Wicked. Brrr. Tabi, Tanith, how you doing?
Very, very good, thank you. How are you? You can call me Tabi or Tanith.
What is?
Tabi's my nickname.
Talk to me about.
Tanith's my birth name.
What's Tanith Luro? Tell us what's that mean.
So Tanith is my birth name, and Lou and Ro are shortened versions of my middle name and my last name.
Okay.
So kind of the closest thing to my real name. Tabi is my nickname. That's what a lot of people know me as. It's easier for people. I like it.
Sweet action. You look well. You look happy. You look shiny. You look like you're in good spirits.
Yeah, thank you. I'm feeling really good, actually. Life has been pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Lately, and yeah, things are well.
Tell us about the amazingness. What's been happening that's so good? What's your secret?
I can't tell you.
Could tell you, but I have to kill you.
Possibly.
You look you look like someone who could be a bit lethal, and like I can imagine you like in an old black onesie and on the motorbike with a silencer on your pistol and just driving past you. Totally get away with that.
Like an assassin, ninja assassin.
Totally.
Yeah, I could totally.
Especially with maybe I will. Especially with a name like Tabi. Like Tabi's what ninjas wear on their feet.
It's true, and I have a pair of those, and they're like my favorite shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I was training yesterday, doing some boxing with a new trainer, and I didn't know that my punches were kind of powerful. It's a little armed. I'm doing okay. And he was like, "Whoa, I wouldn't want to fuck with you."
Have you ever
it feels good.
Have you ever been into a fist fight with like on the street or whatever?
No, maybe when I was like in my young teens, like in high school. It wasn't really a fist fight in the street. It was a bit of a like, wow,
pulling hair and all of that.
Oh, very ungraceful and not feminine at all. Yeah, no, I've been on the other side of some fist fights, but I've never really defended myself. So part of what the boxing training was a little bit about building my confidence and yeah, I don't want to have to punch people, you know, but.
So has that been part of the amazingness, like the physical training, the boxing stuff, or?
Most definitely. Most definitely, yeah.
What else is like has been a catalyst for the amazing state that you're experiencing?
A sense of purpose.
Tell us about
having a big vision that I'm actually working for.
Because that's similar. That's like along the path how we met, isn't it? Like that's sort of
definitely
was birthed around the time that we came across one another.
For sure. Yeah. So I guess my bigger vision, you know, in a condensed form, is helping others shine, which I think is part of your vision too, really.
And definitely relate to that.
And you did, yeah, and you did help me with that, definitely. I'm trying to remember what month it was. I feel like it was maybe November of 2016 that I did the 7-day challenge. It might have even been earlier. No, actually, it probably was November.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And yeah, it was amazing. I had a friend link me to you and the 7-day challenge. I think it was Tashka. Tagged me in one of the posts, and I thought, all right, I'll give this a go. It seems interesting. I'd been really interested in like Qigong and Tai Chi and kind of looking to explore that path a bit more. And I didn't realize that it was so beyond just movement. And there were all these really interesting challenges and self-reflections. And I love that stuff. So I was really, really grateful that that was a part of it. And, you know, I guess one of the biggest things that came out of that for me was not only a bit of a change in direction and motivation in life, but it all kind of started with one video that, yeah, I guess the first part was filming little videos in the group, introducing to the group and telling them about ourselves. And then one particular day was, oh, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, was that a new thing for you, like sharing videos of yourself online, or was that something you'd always done, or?
No, that was definitely new.
Yeah, cool, because that's something that a lot of people have issues with. They're like, oh, I don't want to put my face on front of social media or do share videos. That's so scary, or that's so not me, or what, you know, like a lot of people have stuff around it. So for you, what was there stuff there, and did you overcome it? Did you have to overcome anything around that stuff, or you just said, fuck it, I'll do it? Or, you know, like what was that experience like for you?
There was definitely a bit of overcoming. I was fairly nervous about the first one, and I can't remember if I refilmed it a few times, partly because I was laughing at myself. And then I thought, oh, what are people going to think of me? This silly thought. And yeah, the first one was like 30 seconds or a minute or something.
Just like, hi, this is me, and like, this is what it's like, blah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I did that, and I was like, wow, that wasn't so hard or bad or anything. And I was seeing all these other people sharing, and that was really inspiring.
It's like the monsters under the bed, isn't it? It's like the creepy. It's like in your mind, it's so scary. You look under, there's nothing there, or the bloody cockroach or something.
It's like most fear, I think, when we're looking at something from a distance and we create all these stories or risks or possibilities in our head, but when it's right in front of us and we just do it, we look back and think, oh, why did I waste all that time being anxious and afraid? I just did it. It wasn't even that bad. Actually, it was awesome.
Yeah. Often we like the drugs as well. We like the drugs of that tentativeness, you know, as well. Like that gives the body some cortisol and some adrenaline, and you know, like that can be nice, you know. People can get addicted to that as well.
Yeah, strange, because it doesn't really feel all that good in the long run.
No. So yeah, you had the video, and talk to us more about, because I don't actually know this story. This is the first time I'm hearing your reflection of it. So yeah, continue.
True. Yeah, I think I wrote something very briefly, but it's not, kind of not the full story. So the biggest step for me came when there was a day, especially reflecting on community contribution and how are we contributing to our community. And although I'd been talking about and thinking about these ways in which I wanted to, I wasn't actually taking action. So not long before that, someone had asked me, what have you been doing? Similar to what you said, what have you done in this time that's changed you? And obviously I had a major life transformation, and we can talk about that later, but also I've been doing a lot of like personal things in my life as well, just little bits and pieces that had, brought me closer to healing and being whole and feeling confident. And I'd wanted to somehow share that on, a wider platform with people. So I filmed this little video in my lounge room, and that was part of my community contribution challenge. And I think I just did it that day. I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it. And I didn't really think about it too much or like dress up or anything. And it ended up going for 10 minutes. I didn't mean for it to, but I posted it on my Facebook, and lots of people watched it, and I got some really amazing feedback. And then people started sharing it with their friends, and then I was getting these comments and messages from people that I'd never met and people that didn't even know my friends. And I was like, whoa, that was really unexpected. So I think part of sharing bits of my story really inspired other people, and that basically was the catalyst to launching a Facebook page or Facebook community. Really, is what I'd rather call it.
Is it a group or is it a page? Or?
And it is a page. Yeah. That's the Self-Worth Warriors.
Yeah.
And I've got a little Instagram account as well, and just sharing little bits and pieces of my own journey and transformation that I feel like would be helpful or inspiring to other people. And now I've got this really, it's not massive, but quite a broad reach around the world. And I haven't been really active in it recently because I've just been really active in life.
Yeah.
But it's a really special thing for me to have been able to share. And I may not have gotten the courage to do that for a long time. But having that reflection in a 7-day challenge was like, all right, I'm just going to do it. What am I waiting for?
Amazing.
So it was really perfect.
Amazing.
Really, yeah.
Good on you.
Incredible.
Good on you for stepping into, and, you know, like you said, you I think you're quite humble in that. You're like, oh, there was a bit of overcoming. Like, I think that just that concept in your mind, the fact that you see it as, oh, there was a little bit of overcoming, shows a lot about you. You know, a lot of people, that little bit of overcoming was like, oh my God, that was a fucking Everest to overcome. You know, and that's how people make it in their mind, and it's a molehill which you can actually just step over if you take that perspective out. You know, so it's good work on doing that. And yeah, it's always warms my heart when people like get it, you know, and they like really take it and run with it, the concepts. You know, a lot of that day that you're talking about, actually, that day where we share on community and contribution, is actually also the action taking day as well. It's all about taking massive action and getting shit done, so that you implemented that without even really knowing that. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I think that's one of the seeds that gets planted, and then for you to take it and run with it just warms me up like nothing else. It's absolutely
thank you. Thank you for being such a massive part in that journey.
It's my absolute pleasure. It's like the feedback loop, you know, like that of inspiration. If I feel inspired, I do this thing, I offer this thing. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I do it anyway. You know, and people seem to like it, and they have massive wins, and that warms me up, and they get inspired, and then you getting inspired and taking action gets me. It's just this awesome feedback loop, isn't it? So yeah. It's my absolute pleasure. And talk to us a little bit about the journey that you mentioned that you'll go into a little bit later.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's really interesting timing to be doing this, because my anniversary, this experience, make it sound like such a mystery, is 2 years tomorrow.
Oh,
well,
wow.
It's 2 years tomorrow since my surgery. So celebrating a big milestone. And
amazing.
Basically,
the 25th is a special day for me as well. That's my, the 25th of September is my birthday. So it always, every 25th of every month reminds me that that's like, okay, a month down in the lap.
Another month, yeah. Yeah, it's funny, the 25th of May is my birthday. So it happened 4 months before my birthday, exactly. And right at the, it was 4 months after the start of my Saturn return. I don't know if you're into astrology or anything.
Tell those who don't, I know what it is, but tell those, for those who are listening who have no idea what that is, a quick summary of what.
Okay. I don't know if I have the exact best explanation of it, but from my understanding, when you're born, all the planets and stars are in a very particular alignment. And a lot of people know in the zodiac what their star sign or sun sign is. And that's where the sun is aligned, you know, with the place that you're born at that particular time, and that constellation or something like that. I'm probably not explaining that properly.
It's in that part of the sky when.
Yeah.
At that hour.
Yeah. So
the minute that you were born.
Everywhere. Your birth chart is like the mapping of where everything is at your time of birth, time and place of birth. And each one of them has a really like special and specific component attached to it. And Saturn does a 28-year cycle. So, or roughly, most people, their Saturn is in a certain place in their birth chart when they're born, and then 28 years later comes around and is in alignment again. So it's a 28-year cycle. And lots of people, I've had friends for years that have been turning 28 and saying, oh my God, my life went crazy and all this crazy stuff happened. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to be fine. Don't even worry about it. And like, whoa, nearly died. Okay, cool. I see your little thing you post there. That's great. So it can be a time of major change and upset in life, and not necessarily upset. You know, if you've done some work before that point to get to where you're meant to be, it might be a little bit more smooth sailing. But lots of people, lots of my friends lost family members, went through breakups, lost their jobs, lots of kind of huge changes. So
when I was 28, my brother died, and my daughter was born as well. So yeah, definitely lots of changes.
Huge changes. Yeah. Wow.
And for you, nearly died. Tell us about that. What the fuck?
Okay. So yeah, for quite a long time, most of my adult life, I've been struggling with addiction to drugs and alcohol. And I got to a point in my life, funnily enough, now that I've mapped it back with my astrologer around the start of my Saturn returns, where I just looked at my life and thought, what the hell am I doing? I don't want the rest of my life to look like this, and I've got to start making changes. And I didn't really understand how ill I was at that point. And I was actually having pretty major mental issues that were misdiagnosed as a bunch of things. I was homeless. I had been in a abusive relationship. And
was this all pre 7-day challenge or?
Yeah. So this was, things started looking a bit weird sort of the end of 2015.
Cool.
And then, things went downhill really quickly, and I sought help. I was seeing a doctor and a psychologist and going down a very mainstream health path, and I moved into a women's refuge, and I was still falling apart and not getting any better. So I basically got to a point where I'd managed to stop taking drugs in a pretty short space of time, but I was drinking a lot in place of that. I think there's a term called substance transference, where people tend to give up one thing and then just take up another, because it's that hole that's not being filled internally. Mm-hmm. And I drank and I drank and I drank, and I wasn't eating and I wasn't drinking water, and I was so depressed. My mind wasn't working properly. I could barely hold a conversation. I couldn't put two and two together. I thought I'd completely fried myself on drugs, and that was the end. That was it.
Just from drinking?
So that was from drugs and alcohol. So this is long-term damage. And what I thought was just there was no coming back from that. So I got to a place of really severe depression. And one day I decided that, I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't just decide that, it's been something that I'd felt for a long time, but I decided to actually take action on that. Mm. And I drank and I drank, and I took a whole lot of paracetamol, and I went to sleep thinking that I wouldn't wake up. Mm. And then I did.
What's a whole lot? Talking the whole 5 grams or something or more?
It was a really high dose osteopenadol, and I took a bunch of handfuls, kind of one after another, and then I don't really remember after a certain point. Mm. And
what do you remember when this was?
What's that?
You remember when that was exactly?
Yeah, so that was January 2016.
Okay.
And so the next morning I woke up and I thought, my God, I've just failed at another thing.
You're like, am I alive? Is this a real world?
Yeah. If anything, I just felt this major sense of disappointment. I've failed at everything in life. I'm not worthy to live. I'm going to be a burden to people.
Can't even do this properly.
Now. Exactly. And then I got into the shower and some blood came out of my nose, and I thought, well, that's a bit strange. And I didn't really think too much about it. I just didn't care about myself at that point. Then I vomited some blood. Then I was coughing up blood. And so an ambulance got called. The ambulance came. I walked myself out there. I kind of explained to them what happened, but not fully, because it's still, it's difficult to come to terms with that kind of thing and really communicate it to someone. They knew pretty quickly what was going on. And the next thing I knew, I was in the hospital in emergency. There were a bunch of people running around me. They were going to put me in a helicopter, then they weren't. And no one really told me what was going on, but I didn't really care at that point. And then nothing for 6 days. I got put in a coma because I was dying. And I got kept overnight at the hospital because it wasn't safe to fly me, and then helicoptered to another hospital the next day. Obviously, I don't remember any of this. I've just been pre-told everything. Yeah. And then I had an 8.5-hour surgery to have a new liver. I had a liver transplant. So my liver died in my surgery inside me and spat out a bunch of toxic stuff on my kidneys, and my kidneys failed. I was on dialysis. When they put the new liver in, my new liver is much bigger than my previous liver, so it was kind of partially compressing one of my lungs, and I ended up with a heap of fluid on my lungs. There were quite a few complications afterwards, but I didn't know any of this, obviously. And the first time I woke up, I didn't know what was happening. I totally panicked. I had a breathing tube in that I didn't realize was going to balloons in my lungs and keeping me alive. Tried to tear it out. And that's really normal for coma patients when you wake up and you don't know what's happening, apparently. And yeah, the second time I woke up, the doctor got straight in my face and said, hey, this is where you are, and you've had a liver transplant. And I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. My body was like a little water balloon. I had 10 kilos of fluid on me, and I had no control over my body whatsoever. And it was one of the most confronting experiences of my life, but I was alive, you know, and someone else had made a sacrifice at the end of their life to save mine. So I had to kind of change my tune pretty quickly about how I look at life. And
so it wasn't a case of, whoa, I got a new liver, I can fuck this one up, it's all good, I got another one.
No, definitely not. It was more like, firstly, what the fuck is going on? What is this real? What's happening? Am I really alive? Is this some, you know, like so many questions, and not being able to communicate. My throat was just like sore, very, very sore from having the breathing tube in. So I could kind of like say a couple of words, but not much. And I had a nurse with me 24/7 while I was in emergency or in ICU. And my parents would come up and my family came up, and didn't really talk that much to anyone. And they were kind of, you know, everyone's really emotional. I just nearly died. But I didn't really, it took me a while to really get the impact of that. You know, I'm just laying there feeling pretty lifeless in a hospital bed. And yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. It's what was your memory like? Like, what was your memory of before? Like, you remember being in the bathroom? Like, did that all come back immediately, or like eating? I don't know if you said you're in the bathroom when you were eating the paracetamol. And
I was in the bathroom in the morning.
Did you remember that instantly when you woke up the first time or the second time, or did that take a while to?
Yeah, no, I did kind of know what had happened. And one of the really incredible things that happened really quickly was my mental clarity started coming back.
Because you hadn't taken drugs or alcohol for 6 days.
Well, it was part of the fact that it was out of my body, but also something that happens with end-stage liver failure is that when a liver can't filter toxins anymore and it's functioning at such a low level, the toxins are just spilling into the blood and eventually into the brain. And it took me ages to be able to say this, hepatic encephalopathy. I had to write it down and practice it. Encephalopathy.
Encephalopathy?
So, Christ.
Encephalopathy? Encephalopathy.
Yeah, so I heard people say it like 20 times and I was like, what are they talking about? And that's basically where the brain swells and floods with ammonia, and you can have a blackout of up to 3 days without remembering anything but still functioning and doing stuff. But it doesn't really make sense, so you just look a bit crazy. You can talk and do things, but you're kind of in zombie mode. And most people just think when people are at that point, oh, they're a bit off the rails, they've burnt themselves out on drugs and booze, you know, but there's actually a physical element going on there. So when I got my new liver, you know, I got the old one out because it was rubbish, and the new one was functioning, and I had clean blood, and I'd had blood transfusions and fluid and all of these things. It was just like my brain started working again. It was insane. I struggled with simple mathematics. If I was having a conversation like this, I'd forget what we were talking about 20 seconds later, and you'd be lucky to get one word out of me.
This was a week before, like a week before
yeah.
this one happened.
Yeah. Just before, yeah.
Have you experienced, because I think I got a friend who's got a liver transplant as well. And she says that, I could be making that up, it could be a kidney, but it's definitely a transplant. And she has experienced like different cravings and different kind of things that she likes. Like she's into, like before she was never into women, now she's into women all of a sudden because she has a man's liver now, or you know what I mean? And she has these kind of different aspects of herself which were never her, and that's all part of the transplant, she reckons. That's what she puts it down to. Have you experienced anything like that?
A little bit. People often ask this question, and what it is cellular memory. And at first I sort of thought, I don't really know, I haven't noticed anything, because I met some people that had some profound things. I met a lady in the aftercare ward who was there with her daughter. Her daughter was 20 and having her second transplant. She had her first one when she was 9. Whoa. She had some kind of disease where her body couldn't process copper. And when she had her transplant when she was 9 years old, she came home and started cooking in the kitchen. And just knew how to cook. And her mum was like, what's going on here? And I was like, oh, I want a thing. What's my thing? You know?
I got ripped off. Can't even cook.
Well, it's funny because it took me a while to like reflect back on stuff, and there could be more things than I realized because it was such a big transformation for me from being so unwell before. A lot of people, you know, they say, a lot of people that knew me before and know me now say, wow, you're so much more grounded and calm and chilled out. And I think, oh, well, I guess that can come with freeing myself from addiction and a sense, like a need to get approval from people. But also some of that maybe has come from my donor. And one of the things that came up for me pretty early on that I kind of pushed to the side and didn't think about too much was to do with numbers. So when I was first in the hospital and I couldn't even feed myself or lift my arm, you know, my mum was reading books to me to kind of like just do something. And initially when I first started being able to just like pick things up really shakily and feed myself, Mum got me some puzzle books, you know, with like crosswords and Sudoku and things like that. And I was like scrolling all over the page with my little wobbly arms. But it was good to kind of get my motor skills back. And it wasn't so much like the Sudoku, but the maths related puzzles that I'd never ever been drawn to before. And I felt like it was a good brain exercise, but it was like I could just figure out the numbers really easily. And then a few months later, I started feeling really drawn towards numerology. And I've been doing a bit of numerology training in the last year. And I now have this amazing mentor and teacher who has asked me to write some blogs for her and work with her, which is really exciting. And that was just, you know, I've had interest in that kind of thing very vaguely in the past, but it's definitely been a strong thing since then. And I didn't connect the dots that it started when I was in hospital, really. And it was one of the first things I really did. So maybe my donor was a mathematician or a numerologist. I don't know.
Do you know?
But I feel like there's definitely something.
Are you allowed to know anything about your donor, or what's the legalities of all of that?
The organisation that oversees organ donation doesn't reveal any details. And up until recently, I thought that was just a guideline, but I think it is actually a law in Australia, which is unfortunate. And I do have this really strong desire to know about my donor. And, you know, I've contacted the family because you can send correspondence through the overseeing organisation, but it can't have any identifying details, and they edit them and then send it on for you. But there are forums on Facebook and online that people do reach out and try and find their loved ones, recipients, or their donor's family.
Like, so they're not legally allowed, but you're allowed to sort of do your own PI work and find out of your own accord, kind of thing. Like, if serendipity brings you together, then it's not illegal. Like,
I'm pretty sure, because there's a lot of people out there doing it, and you know, I have witnessed some stories of people meeting the donor's family, and yeah, it's definitely something that I think about a lot. You know, I have a piece of another human in me, and I don't know anything about them.
Well, you intimately know stuff about them. You probably don't even realize. You know,
possibly.
What would you say to them if you met them? Like, what would you like to ask them about? Or?
Well, you know, I can't meet my donor because they're dead. That sounds really harsh and terrible, but it's just the truth.
But you know, like, say they were alive and you could meet them, or say that you could meet their family, and what would you say to them? And you know, what would you want to find out from the family? Or
yeah, I guess that's the possibility, is meeting the family, and I would just like to know about who they were as a person, what their favorite things were, what they liked to do, or just how they were in the world. I'm not even really sure. I have this strong desire, and I imagine it being possible and happening, but you know, I'd probably just bawl my eyes out and not even be able to talk, because like, how do you know, it took me 9 months to write my thank you letter to the family, because first of all, they were grieving, and secondly, that is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life.
Wow.
How do you say, hey, thanks, your loved one died so I could live? You know, and I wasn't allowed to mention anything about my life before or the circumstances around it, which is understandable, but also, you know, like, I want to express to them more how much my life has transformed since. And maybe I don't need to say what my life was like before, but I just want them to know that I don't even know how to put that.
Powerful stuff. Do you
I'm making the most of my life.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's definitely shit. Do they tell you like the donor was this age and this like they're Australian, or like do they tell you any of that stuff, or they're from New South Wales, or they don't share any of that? I've lost your audio. I don't know what you're back.
Hang on a second. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah, you can hear me, but I can't hear you. I might have to do that. Can you hear?
I can hear you loud and clear. Just the same as before.
Awesome. All right. I thought that was weird. I got a messenger call, a phone call, and then maybe my headphones died, like all at once.
Yeah.
Like,
that's creepy. It's your donor. It's your donor who's speaking to us.
Yeah, that's weird. Wow. So I missed what you just said. Yeah, I'm like, who is it? Where are you? I did miss what you just said, but I wanted to share something else, a little something about that, if that's okay.
For sure. Well, I just said that. Did they tell you what age he was, what nationality, where is he from, all of that stuff, or?
Yeah, none of it. I wasn't told anything. And some people do get like a little piece of information. They might get told the gender of the person or their age. And the same goes with donor families. They might get told, oh, the heart recipient was a young woman or something like that. It's all very vague. I may have made this assumption, but from the very beginning, and maybe it's because it is a bigger liver and I've thought this, but I've always felt like it's from a man. And my mum knew someone that had had a liver transplant and named their liver, like given it a name and had a birthday for it and all these things. And I thought that was really funny at first. And then mum said, what are you going to name your liver? Not even really thinking about it. I just said, Rodney. I don't know why. So there was this bit of running joke for like the first year that me and Rodney were going on all these adventures, and that I called my liver Rodney. And I stopped doing that, not because I felt weird about it, but also I felt like my journey to healing is about being whole in my body. And if I kept referring to it as this other name, that something belonged to someone else, it's like some people say, oh, my donor's liver. And now I just like to say my liver. You know, it's integrated, it's part of my body, and I'd rather embrace it than segregate it.
100%.
So it's just me now.
Was that the piece you wanted to share on that?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And was it, I know that oftentimes the body would just reject things, so there was no complications around that, or there was, and that's why shit went down with the lung compression and all of that stuff?
I didn't have any rejection in the beginning, and I did have some early stages of rejection later in that year, but nothing serious. But I am on, most transplant patients are on immune suppressant medication or anti-rejection medication for life. So I'm on mine consistently at the moment, and that may change in the future. But yeah, for now I take a daily dose every 24 hours that just stops my body from rejecting it, which is a really strange concept and really quite bizarre, but keeps me alive.
It's a small price to pay.
Definitely, most definitely. Yeah. That's
amazing.
Sure.
And yeah, it's incredible, all of that whole story there. I just sent a link there. Did you get it? It's a book called The Heart's Code. Have you read it?
No, I saw something pop up about the heart, and I haven't read that though.
This book here, I highly recommend it.
Okay.
It's called The Heart's Code, Tapping the Wisdom and Power of Our Heart Energy.
Sounds great.
Who is the author of it? Let me find out. It is by a few people, or a couple of people. Paul Pearsall is the guy's name, but I think there's another writer in there as well. But they talk a lot about heart transplant, patients and people who've recovered from having their hearts transplanted. And that's an incredible concept there. Like I'm like, liver's like yeah, but the heart is pretty intense.
For sure.
So like I imagine the procedure's pretty intense. Do you have like
wow.
Do you have like? But I highly recommend that book for you. Like if being someone with the real life experience of it, it's you'll be able to relate to a lot of it, I imagine.
Awesome, thank you.
Do you have like crazy scars from the?
Do I have scars? Yes.
Crazy scars from the surgery.
Do you want to see my scars?
Do you have them, or is it appropriate, or like?
Yeah, it's totally. Yeah. Do you know what? I show it off in every chance I can.
Awesome.
Battle scar. I wear crop tops now just to be like, hey, check out my scar. Do you want to see it?
100%. I'd love to.
All right. I've just got shorts on, but it's like, I don't know if you could be able to. So it goes up the middle, across, and then just a little bit that way.
Wow.
This cut is called a Mercedes Benz. And it's kind of like a peace sign and like the Mercedes logo. Yeah, it's really tidy. That was like, they glued me back together. The stitches on the inside glued me. I just find that mind blowing. Just stick some glue on it. She'll be right.
She'll be right. Just the body would dissolve it naturally. It's fine. That's incredible. To wake up going, oh. What was it like? Discomfortable, like for the a couple of weeks or something? Or?
What was it like? How? Sorry.
Was it discomfort? Were you in discomfort from like being cut open and like was it like?
For sure.
Yeah. You've muted yourself. Hold on, you're on mute.
Oh, man, my phone. Yeah, I was on some really heavy painkillers, so I apart from taking internal stuff, I also had like a line-in with fentanyl for the first like week or two, I think.
That's like
heroin. I didn't realize.
So you're on heroin the whole time, pretty much.
I was definitely hallucinating at one point for a couple of days.
Fentanyl is like strong gas or stronger than heroin, is that right?
I'm not actually sure. From doing some research since, I know that it's a huge abuse issue in places like Canada and a little bit in the US.
It's a strong opiate, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize. And I mean, it's a controlled dose that they gave me, and it was like a drip line. And I just had a little button that I could press every 5 minutes if I needed it.
You could dose yourself up.
Like, I just pressed it every time the little light came on because I was terrified of feeling the pain. You know, like my body was just, it was weird. And then they slowly kind of cut down the painkillers. And yeah, initially it was just I was just real weak. I was so weak. My body was just like, you know, been through all this trauma. I was covered in bruises. My whole arm, like my palm and my whole arm were all bruised.
Yeah, random.
Like purple, green. It's really strange.
Random.
And yeah, I was like this. I was puffy everywhere. I was like a little Michelin man from all the fluid. My kidneys weren't working, and they pumped in a lot of fluid in the surgery. Yeah. So I didn't really realize for like the first week until I was in the bathroom one day and I looked at my body and I was like, this is definitely bigger than before. Awesome. Strange sensation.
So you'd already, you hadn't started, or you had started like the whole, so then it was recovery, I guess, from when you finished when you finished all that surgery and all of that happened, got the transplant up until we met was like what, 10 months, 9 months or something?
Yeah. So yeah, about 10 months.
And what was happening between then? Like what was going on for you then? Have you touched alcohol or drugs ever since? Like what's been the journey since then?
Yeah, I've been sober and clean for 2 years.
Amazing.
Nice. And that's the plan now. I'm not going to, if I fuck this one up, they won't give me another one. So it'd be pretty stupid and like fair enough.
Did they say that to you? They said, this is your last, if you do that again, we're not going to give you another one. Was that like their word?
Pretty much. Yeah. They took a real risk with me because normally to even be on the transplant list, you have to be sober for 6 months to even be put on the list. And then it might be a wait from there. But I was going to die. And in the first hospital, the doctors actually said that I probably wouldn't get a liver. They told my parents that. And like, understandably, they looked into my history. They knew that I had addiction issues. They knew that I had mental health issues. They were like, she's not going to look after it. So I really had to prove myself after that. I didn't have to do follow-up psych and support, but it was encouraged. And I did it to kind of prove it to myself and to them. So the hospital had like an alcohol and drug support unit. And I had a psychologist there, and initially I saw her, you know, every couple of days, and then it cut down to once a week, and then it cut down to once a fortnight, once a month. And at about the 9-month mark was when I stopped seeing her. And that was amazing. You know, she did use things like therapy. What's that, sorry?
Yeah, what was that process like? Was it like, were you pretty keen to get it started, or you were pretty tentative, or like what was the thought process behind it? You said you wanted to prove it to yourself, yeah, and to them a bit. Was there anything else coming up for you, or what made you go, fuck it, yes, I'm going to jump in and do this and commit to it? And what helped you stay committed to it once you did decide?
Yeah, just to have the support. You know, my family were there for me in the beginning, but eventually they had to go back to their lives and working, and I had to get independent pretty quick and look after myself. And I was living on my own quite early without much support. And, you know, that was a real strength builder. It was very difficult at the time, but now I look back and think I can get through anything if I got through that, you know. And there were some dark days in there, especially in the early days. I didn't really have a lot of energy. In the first month when I was living on my own, I could walk out the door, walk about 15 meters, walk back and sleep for 3 hours because that was all I was capable of, you know. It was just slowly kind of building, rebuilding. Took a lot of time. Took a real lot of time.
And that was like alone? Really, you were just at home doing that and then going and seeing the psychologist and whatnot?
Yeah, I was living independent in a little unit right near the hospital. I had supported accommodation, which is like if you need to be by the hospital, they provide a bit of rent support. And then because the hospital knew my situation, they had like a courtesy taxi service, so they'd bring me to and from there for my appointments, blood tests, psych, all the things.
Amazing.
And yeah.
And had you done anything like that before? Like, have you tried any of the recovery stuff in the past, or like had some, like, what was that kind of journey like before all of this went down?
So I did things like AA and NA. I tried them. They didn't really do it for me. But I also wasn't in a place where I was so willing to change. You know, I knew I needed to change, but I kind of got in there and thought, I don't need this. I don't need these people, which is part of my kind of defense mechanism as well. And years ago, I tried to do some recovery support and like outpatient kind of detoxing in Brisbane. And one of the first times around that was successful, and not so much the next few times. And it's funny because at one point, like in 2012, I knew that I was sick. I knew that there was something going on, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And I just decided to stop everything. I stopped drinking, I stopped smoking, I stopped drugs, and I went on this crazy diet that I thought was aimed at balancing out my intestinal bacteria, especially Candida. And I thought that was giving me these like mental issues and stuff. And now that I look back on it, I'm quite sure that I was having some pretty major liver problems at the time. And I may have just actually saved my own life at that point.
Yeah, crazy.
That was like stage liver failure symptoms that I was having.
Oh, wow.
Now I know what that looks like and feels like. So that was like 5 years before.
Wow.
You know?
And it's not a good combo. I imagine the drug abuse and the weak liver.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any kind of, I guess, like message for anyone? Like, do you see anyone doing drug abuse or, you know, having this kind of experience that you'd like to share with them, or like, you know, seeing your path through it, like from your own experience, like what would you like to share, or would you like to share anything at all?
For sure. I definitely don't want to say, don't do it, drugs are bad, because I've actually had some heart-opening and eye-opening and bizarre experiences that I don't really want to take back. And I don't look back and think, oh, I wish I never did that, you know, because I really enjoyed it at the time. And, you know, life is an experience, and I do believe that everything exists for a reason. And my view on drugs for many years, and especially even more so now, has been that they exist as a peak experience, like a high, and a peak experience, like a peak into something that's possible. But it's the shortcut, it's the hard and fast road, and you don't have to do any work to get there. You just pay your dealer and you take it and you go on the journey. But there is so much more that's available beyond that if you take a different fork in the path and go the slightly harder road, which might be, you know, it's different for everyone. Breath work, yoga, exercise, love, dancing, superfoods, you know, there's all of these. I remember people used to tell me, oh, have you ever tried breath work and things like that when I was like taking drugs, and I was like, have you ever tried LSD? Whatever, you know, like I had this little attitude like, you don't even know, you know. And now that I'm like having these experiences, I'm like, whoa, I get it now.
You tried some Qigong and you're like, hang on a sec.
Exactly. This shit's good.
You can see why I do it all the time, right?
Yeah.
Being a bit of a psychonaut myself, you know, it's like I love those altered states. So, you know, there's a quick and direct route. It might not take 1 second where you just put it in your mouth. Might have to stand there for 10, 15, 20 minutes, but, you know, it's similar results and a lot more. Yeah, I wouldn't even say it's like better or anything, but it's just different, you know. I think it's a lot less body load than a lot of these things, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot less liver load.
Definitely. Yeah. And there's actually some real, you know, deep healing available in those experiences. And yeah, like I said, I don't not condone taking drugs, but I think people just really need to be aware of what is at the root of addiction for a lot of people. Is you try something, smoke a bit of weed, and you feel good. You feel better than you normally would. And then you go back to your job and you have a shit day and you think, oh, that was shit. Oh, life's a bit shit. I'll do that thing that made me feel good again. And you do it and you're like, yeah, I feel good. And then one day it's not enough. And you try something else and it feels a little bit better. And you try something else and it feels a little bit better. And we keep holding on to this feeling of feeling good. That's not what life is about. Life is ebbs and flows like the ocean. You know, all emotions are there and valid and totally for a reason. And I get that people want to feel good. And those feelings are available, but you can't, it's not sustainable to hold on to it 24/7. One of the things I really experienced in my recovery and healing was that everything that I'd been pushing down and suppressing for so long was like, hey, remember us? And it was so intense, you know, stuff from years and years and years ago. And I went through it and I got through it without suppressing it, and I had to just let it out and write and cry and sing and dance and paint and do all the things that, you know, actually let it out rather than just trying to smush it back down. And I feel like I'm so much more free of a lot of that stuff. Like every now and then something or something gets triggered, but yeah, it's not worth suppressing it because it's still there.
The song that comes is like, you can keep on running, like a running and a running and a running away. It's a Bob Marley tune. So you can keep on running, but you can't run away from yourself. Like that's the lyrics in the song. It's just like, you can keep running as long as you want, but you're always going to be there at the end of the day. So, you know, it's going to be a lifelong.
Yeah.
You're going to get pretty tired. It's definitely a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, for sure.
It reminds me of the, you know, like some tribes or some, you know, people, we used to do it back when, you know, 10,000 years ago, but we would walk an animal to death, like, because humans are built for long distance. So we can just walk while in that, like, it might be a tiger or a cheetah or something. And we just walk, like, and it keeps running from us. But we've got our spear, so we'll fuck it up if it comes near us. And we'll walk until the lion or the cheetah or whatever it is goes, fuck, I've had enough. It just collapses and we just go stab it and eat it. But like, that picture of like just keep on running for a lifetime just reminds you that at some point you're just going to cock it, but the fucking yourself, part of yourself is going to be the one that kills you and eats you.
Definitely. Yeah, agreed. That's a great analogy.
Awesome sauce. And so what, tell us more about this, the self-love, the self-worth warriors, is that right?
Self-worth warriors. Yeah.
So what's the premise of that, and do you have anything coming up with that? What does it involve? How do people get involved, and what happens once they do?
Yeah, so it essentially is a community. That's why it's called Self-Worth Warriors, not me, the self-worth warrior.
Yeah.
As much as like I want to be that role model for people and inspire people, I want people to know that the things that I'm tapping into are available within them, and I want to help them to get in touch with that. So I am sort of getting back and a bit active more in that community now. And I want to do a few more videos and things because that was sort of what it started out as. The next step for me, I basically created a vision for the future last year, about 9 months ago, that what I would offer to the world is a few different levels of interaction and ways to inspire people. So I really want to do one-on-one coaching and mentoring because I think a lot can be achieved in that space, and some people need a bit more kind of one-on-one help and support.
100%.
And eventually I want to facilitate workshops. They'll be in small and large groups, all kinds of different age backgrounds, from young people to elderly people, and in, you know, the kind of areas of life that I've dealt with around addiction and mental health and homelessness and suicide, but also just everyone. I want to be able to inspire everyone. I think a lot of people can relate to different parts of my story and what I have to offer.
Mm.
And then the next level of that is public speaking to really large groups, which I did a talk last year on stage, and the same organisation have asked me to feature in a documentary, which is going to be released soon.
Tell us about
really
that.
Exciting.
Tell us about that. What did you speak about on the stage then, and what's the doco about?
Okay, so I spoke about my transplant and transformation on stage.
Mm.
And one thing that I haven't been able to address with that audience yet is that there was actually an inauthenticity in that sharing.
Mm.
And this video has reached a lot of people, so I'm really excited to patch this up. And the one thing that I didn't reveal in that talk was my suicide attempt. I talked about everything else, said I was a drug addict, alcoholic, homeless, all the things, but I wasn't ready to talk about that bit.
Mm.
And it took me up until only just the last sort of 4 to 6 months of telling some of my close friends, being comfortable, you know, sharing it with people on every level, you know. And now I'm telling strangers, I'm telling people on the street, and not just like walking up and telling people, but when it comes up, I just talk about it so much more comfortably because I've done a lot of healing around it, and I realize how much me sharing openly can allow others to share openly, and that's really important to me.
Yeah, well, I have that story too. With, you know, you've seen the video I made for my brother. You have or you haven't?
Oh, you just froze for a second there. Sorry.
You're right. I was saying, as you know, that's a topic close to my heart. As you know, I don't know if you've seen the video I made for my brother or not.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Okay, so that's, you know, and at his service when he died, which was he, you know, jumped in front of a train 4 years ago, almost to today. And then 4 years prior to that, my best friend did exactly the same thing, my best friend Dan. So that was very close to home to me. But being in the service of, you know, the funeral, like it was the best funeral ever, by the way. It was like 400 or 500 people spilling outside of the church, like music, batucada, dancing. Was like the happiest celebration ever.
Wow.
But like not one person mentioned the nature, you know, of his death, and that just like made me angry and upset, and I just felt like I had to address it, you know. And I had 5 or 6 or even more, like up until this day. On the day I had 5 or 6, but up until this day I've had dozens of people come up to me and go, thank you so much for that, you know, for naming the pink elephant, you know, and for actually sharing that, you know. I've been feeling really down or in those states as well, and that, you know, your authenticity and honesty there just really helped me. So, and I caught heaps of flack from the family, and, you know, like for actually sharing truthfully and honestly, but, you know, that authenticity I think is super helpful and super beneficial.
Definitely. And I really admire that you know, stood up and spoke out, because no one wants to talk about it.
Right.
No one. There's so much stigma around it, and it's like taboo, you know, you don't even say the word, especially when that's the circumstances around someone's passing.
Mm. I think normalizing it is the answer. Talking about it, making it normal, and not looking at it like in that video, actually, someone said something really beautiful. They were like, you know, my dad died of depression. You know, a lot of people say my dad died of suicide. He didn't die of suicide. He suicided, but the issue in particular was depression, you know, and that, you know, just having that differentiation is super massive, you know.
Definitely. Yeah.
And a lot of people are experiencing it. Like 1 in 2 people, I think, are experiencing anxiety in Australia alone. Something like 93 or 97% of the Western world is synthetic like leaning, you know, that they're running in that sympathetic nervous system. And so it's like that bias is running. People are flooded with adrenaline, flooded with cortisol. They're just, you know, flooded, you know, that leading to anxiety, tension, unhappiness, essentially. So it's very normal. It's like, we don't want to talk about it, but it's the pink elephant right in front of our face that everyone's experiencing because of the way that lifestyle is set up at the moment. You know, the consumerism, the materialism, the, you know, everything else that is happening in this day and age.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just, you know, as if we don't have enough personal issues just dealing with being human and not having been educated how to deal with these emotions. But the state of the world at the moment and the things that have been happening over the last few years, people feel powerless. You know, there's a lot of people, I mean, I don't watch TV or the news, but I know a lot of people do. And I couldn't imagine maintaining the level of fulfillment and happiness that I have while dealing with that on top of it, you know, and then all of my personal issues, shame, anger, trust issues, sadness, all of the things, you know, that most people have some form of, and then trying to take the weight of the world on top of that. So I'm not surprised.
Not surprised, motherfuckers.
It's a big bad world out there, but there are also, you know, so many amazing elements of life as well. And that's part of my mission now, is really, I want to get to people before they get to the point that I did and make that decision. And even if you can plant a seed of inspiration, you know, that can grow and blossom into anything. And through the work that you do with gifting people the wisdom of Qigong and this self-reflection, which for me really led to purpose, you know, which is something that a lot of people are missing and can be a real major element in feeling depressed or feeling anxious. It's like they're going to a job they hate. They're not doing anything in their personal lives. They turn the TV on at night. They're single and lonely, and, you know, all of these expectations of where you're meant to be in your life. And yeah, purpose can be a major game changer.
Yeah, and that's definitely, I'm glad you got that too, because that's one of my big transmissions, you know, and it's like, why do I do what I do? Well, before I knew what I wanted to do, or even if I had an idea of what I wanted to do, it's like, that might change, the purposes might change, but before that, I was experiencing deep depression, deep feelings of feeling lost, deep feeling of, I don't know what I'm doing, anxiety, all of that stuff. Because I'm like, well, I've got all this time on my hands and I'm not doing anything with it, and I feel like I should do this or should do that. As soon as I decided I'm going to do something, that gave me a sense of purpose, you know. And for a while it was music, you know, I was making music, and that gave me something to do and gave me the joy and fulfillment. Yeah. And then it became coaching, and then it became mindfulness and Qigong. And, you know, just the more that I put myself out there to actually try things, the more I would, like, it might be like walking around in the dark a little bit, but then, suddenly you feel something that feels, there's a light switch, I'm gonna put that on. Oh, cool, I can see, you know, like, and then it lights up the path, and you can carry on from there. So I believe you're right, that purpose is huge, and a lot of people are missing it, or thinking that, well, not even thinking about it. They're like, I don't even care about that stuff, or, you know, but I have a strong feeling that everyone came here, they decided why they were going to come here before they incarnated in whatever body they did. So a lot of the life, I feel, is figuring out or remembering why you came here, and that's what I like to elicit from people. Is like, help that memory, like just jog their memory a little bit. So let's question that a little bit. Let's look into that. See if you can pick up on that reason that happened before you came. If any or all of that.
Oh, that last bit just cut out a little bit. I didn't quite heard.
I was just saying that I was...
Oh, no, I heard most of that. It's just the last bit. What was that?
The last bit was just if I can just help, you know, elicit the memory of what that decision was before they came.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm glad that you got that. You know, you got something in that. Oh, cool, I can do something. And that Self-Worth Warriors, I think that's incredible. Like, that movement has so much potential. You know, there's so much, you know, there can be such a lack of self-worth or a lack of even thinking about that kind of stuff. So I believe that's going to go place, and congratulations on, you know, getting this people inviting you up to talk and you're going back, and yeah. Well, I'm curious actually what your friends have said about it, or like you've had previous friends in the past, or did your friends group change now that you're not in that kind of drinking and stuff world, or like what's happened with the friends group, and what do they say about, what do the friends and family say about your kind of transformation that's happened?
Everyone's pretty happy about it. It's funny how many people come out and say, I was pretty worried about you for a while there. I'm like, well, why didn't you say something? And some people did. You know, I had friends that took me and shook me by the shoulders, like, what are you doing? What are you doing to yourself? You know, you're better than this. You know that, you know, you don't need this, and like sort your life out. And yeah, I guess through this change, I've lost some friends, which was difficult in kind of the early stages of my journey. And, you know, for those people, either I couldn't really see them because I couldn't be in the same environments that I was before, and I couldn't be putting myself in a position of temptation. And then I just sort of stopped connecting with certain people, which was really painful for me. And I really tried and tried and tried. And yeah, you know, their intentions in life are different. And I still am totally there for those people if they reach out or, you know, want my support or anything. But yeah, it's just a different connection. My family are really amazingly grateful. And yeah, we just have these renewed, incredible relationships now. It was really strong in the beginning. We kind of brought together and bonded by this, you know, nearly losing me experience. And then we've had a bit of a rough patch for a while in between. Just, you know, something can bring you together, but it doesn't mean the old stuff isn't going to rise to the surface. It doesn't heal everything. It's kind of like a Band-Aid in a way. And then once that sort of wore away, we had to really work on our communication and forgiveness of the past. And part of that was me really taking responsibility for the choices that I made and the person that I was, and getting in their world and really seeing what the impact on them was, and just owning it. And yeah, what was that last bit? Sorry. I'm a little bit quiet.
I was saying having that empathy and putting yourself in their shoes for a bit.
For sure. Yeah. It took me a while to do that though. You know, initially it was kind of all about me. I just needed to heal, sort my shit out.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's been a difficult journey, but we've really come to this amazing connected place where yeah, I'm just so grateful for the people that they are, and we're all so different and weird and you know, lead different lives and have different interests, but we just have so much love for each other. It's really, yeah, it's the relationships with my family that I always wanted. I wanted them to be my friend. And beautiful. Yeah, that's what we got.
Amazing. So that's the long version, the longest answer of like, what's your secret ever? That's been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Just lastly, I think you were telling me more about that documentary. Just tell us a little bit more about that documentary, and I think we'll
oh yeah, so yeah, the group that I did the talk with is called So What's Your Story? They started locally here in Brisbane, and they've done an event in Sydney, and there's one I think they're going to do in America, I think this year. And so the documentary it's either 5 or 6 storytellers, I'm trying to remember, from different countries all around the world. And the theme is what just happened, kind of as a question. So it's really perfect for my story. Yeah, and I'm the only Australian storyteller. And there's someone from India, someone from the US. I'm trying to remember all the other countries.
And another country, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it's going to be screened in all of those countries as well, which is really exciting.
So they're going to come and see you. Are they an Australian company?
Yeah. So they're based in Brisbane, and they'll actually be launching it, I think, next month. I don't have the exact dates, but they do have a Facebook page.
So you've already recorded all your bits.
No. That's coming up in the next week or so.
Oh, beautiful. Amazing. Nice work.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to tell the whole story and why I didn't include the suicide part in my first story. Cool. And what that's about, and, you know, why it's so important for me to share that now.
It's tough. Like, I know, I've been there, you know. Tough. People don't want to talk about it. It's tough. It's not an easy subject to broach, you know. So congratulations and big ups on doing so. It's, yeah, like if you go to like the newspapers and stuff, it's they just have a no, like people, because they talk about copycat stuff and planting the seed for people. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff to think about there, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And is there anything that you'd like to leave, any question you'd like to leave people with, any just last thoughts?
Interesting. I guess I don't even guess. That's such an offhand like way to start something. I want everyone to open their eyes and look at their world a little bit differently. Literally look in the corners, look at the ceiling, look at the person next to you, look at yourself, and just realize what a miracle it all is. It really is. And there's so much that we take for granted. In the very early stages coming out of my coma, you know, I wore nappies. I had people wipe my butt. I got showered. And some of the most amazing turning points that I remember were when I could take a washcloth and wash my own leg in the shower in a wheelchair. And I was like, whoa, look at me. Proud of myself. And my first step, you know, it literally was like a physical rebirth. And some days I don't want to go to the gym, or I don't want to go for a run, and people have these kind of complaints, and it's like, you've got legs, get up and run.
Fuck off your legs.
We have so much to be grateful for, and let's just all remember that and remind each other of that, and look at our bodies and every single part of everything that's happening, and just be thankful, because you don't know how long it's going to last.
So true. So true.
Sounds cliche, but that's for real.
So true. It's highly important. Massive gratitude is everything. Gratitude is huge. So thank you so much for your time. I thoroughly appreciate you and sharing your story with us and being here with us tonight. And let's do it again sometime. I want to hear post documentary, and you know, once you're running all these workshops and stuff around the place and build your self-worth warriors. I can see that blowing up huge, by the way. If you if you keep at that, that's definitely something that people need, and it's a definite a need for that out in society. So thank you so much for all that you're doing in the world, and we're glad to have you here. Literally, glad to have you here with us.
Amazing. Thank you, Sulu. Thank you so much for your time and for having me, and for being the catalyst to such big change in my life. Because it really was a huge shift for me. And if anyone's considering doing the 7-day challenge, he's not paying me to say this. I'm just saying this. Get out there and do it. It's worth it. It's awesome. You don't know what could come of it. I definitely didn't predict that.
Yeah. Awesome. You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're amazing.
Till next time, guys. Keep the flow growing and the growth flowing.